terminate them at the hock. So they're really only going to work for a toe or metatarsal problem. Okay, they're not going to work for a tarsal problem. You follow me? Because if I put a splint on here, it's still going to allow movement of the tarsus. Not going to help for a tarsal problem. But you can immobilize, say, a toe fracture or a metatarsal fracture with a palmar metasplint on the rear leg. Now we can use a palmar metasplint on the front leg for a distal radial problem, a carpal problem, a metatarsal problem, or a paw problem. So we have a little bit more functionality on the forelimb. These lateral splints are very good. They can even be used to immobilize stifles or elbows.
So they make these ones specific for the hind or the front limb and left and right so that they're angled properly so that they can kind of mold into the whole limb of the animal. So you'll get them for front, back, right, left, and then you have small, medium, large sizes.
So you can see these lines represent different ways. I mean, if you're strong enough, I can actually take this over the edge of the table and break it off at one of these lines, but usually we take a little hacksaw or a Dremel drill and just cut it off if we have a shorter leg on the animal. So these are designed to be cut off to fit the animal. That's why those grooves are there. Okay, and they have the holes for respiration for air to get into the leg. So we start with the same steps. We start with our stirrups on the dorsal and plantar aspect. Oh. Now make sure you have at least 3 to 4, or at least 4 to 6 inches of tape on your leg for these. Okay, now you can get your assistant to hold the leg in approximately the same. It's very important while you're putting on the wrap that the leg be in approximately the same configuration as it's going to be as you wrap the leg. And I'm going to use these used ones so I can show you how you can use used ones. And so we're going to go directly to our cast padding now. Yes. I would have caught myself if I wasn't talking. Okay, so again, at least 4 layers. So we've got 2 to 3 there. We're going to do 2 going up the leg.
So that's at least 2 layers on this one. 4 to 6 is best. You want to make
at
sure
least 4 layers.
At least 4 though. You want to make sure that there's enough padding to protect against the splints, so that it doesn't cause injury to the limb itself. Okay, so that you want it to be extra protected.
There are 2 major problems with splints. Okay, try to keep the leg in the conformation of the splint. Going the wrong way. There we go. Okay, and as Cherie was saying, there's 2 major problems we run into with splints. One is dicubital ulcers, and that's a term you should know, D-I-C-U-B-I-T-A-L, which is another name for pressure sores. Dicubital, D-I-C-U-B-I-T-A-L. And anytime the splint rubs on an area of the inadequate padding, it will cause a dicubital ulcer. The way you'll know, it will smell. So one of the things we tell the clients is smell the bandage, the splint, every day. Okay? And the other problem we run into with animals that are splinted over long periods of time is stiffening and contracture of the tendons. So if you leave the splint, an animal in splint for 4 to 6 weeks, that leg will come out stiff, and you'll have to do physical therapy to get the tendons to flex again. So you really want to get them out of the splint as soon as possible. So now we're up at the top, so I've got 2 layers. 3 layers, and as Cherie said, you can put in as many as 6 layers, so there's 4 layers. Now the problem is you want to do fewer layers on smaller animals, because if you do 6 layers on a cat, you're going to have this really big, bulky splint that they're going to walk around like the Hulk, you know, trying to move that thing. And that can, be very difficult for the animal. So use a thickness appropriate for the size of the animal, all right? So if you, again, probably 4 layers on a cat is plenty. On a larger dog, you may need to go up to 6 layers, okay? So splints species and size appropriate animal. Splint, number of layers for the animal. And notice how I'm keeping my layers really smooth. And we've got between 4 and 5 layers on this now. Okay, nice and smooth, all areas are covered. Now I'm going to take my splint and make sure I've got enough, and so it looks like I'm a little short on the top, so we can augment that.
You want to be careful as you go in under the limbs there in the axillary or inguinal area that you're not folding your wrapping material, so you kind of have to do it at an angle because it does. You can't really get high up on the leg as you can on the lateral aspect as in the medial aspect of it.
And also don't wrap their pee-pee in.
Yeah.
I've got a classmate in school did a bandage like this, and the dog peed all the way down the bandage because he had wrapped their pee-pee in. Okay. Okay. We're going to start at the bottom. And again, we're going to do at least 4 layers. And this is the layer where you want to apply pressure, make your bandage taut, and smooth out any areas you have that are not smooth with your brown gauze. Notice how I pull it up and put a little pressure, and then I just roll it and transfer it. Pull it up, put a little pressure, roll it and transfer it. So many areas here I just have 1 layer, so I'm going to have to fix that going down. Okay? So we're going to get it nice and snug all the way up. And again, leave a little tiny area of white showing at the top. And again, you can use that pressure to smooth out your bandage. Should not be, the one rule of thumb is you should not be able to see through it at all, okay? So if you don't have enough brown gauze on it and you can see through it, you need to keep going. A little bit of pressure over the dorsal or cranial surface. Now see, I have a little constricting band there, so I'm gonna, what is going on? I'll fix that. Okay, so this is good now. I can't see through my brown gauze anywhere on the bandage, including the bottom of the foot. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and apply our stirrups. And now here is the point where I will differ probably from some veterinarians in practice. A lot of veterinarians will go ahead and apply their splint. Again, you want an inch below the foot because animal's foot tends to slip down in the bandage, so you want at least to start an inch below the foot so it's transferring the pressure up the leg. Now a lot of veterinarians at this point will just go ahead and put their vet wrap on and affix the splint to the leg like that. I don't do that because I've seen too many splints under the vet wrap rotate.
Or even they'll try to attach it with the brown gauze itself.
In between the layers.
It's the
same problem. It slips. So what I do is I get it here and I do what I call a barber pull, not overlapping my white tape so I don't create a constricting band. And this is the point when you want to look at your splint, make sure it's perfectly lateral, because I'll see splints where you put them on and they've slipped and they're either not on the palmar surface or not on the lateral surface.
Or you've twisted the limb in there also.
Okay, so what you want to do is conform your leg to the splint. And the reason I call it a barber pole is, see, I do not overlap my layers of white tape. So there's no way I can form a constricting band. And this is the same principle you're using when you're putting your stirrups on. Now we're actually affixing the splint to the animal's leg. Okay? Okay, so now that's not going anywhere, you see? That's not going to come off, it's not going to rotate. And that's a difference I'm warning you right now. You will see in practice, you'll see veterinarians do it. And again, if that works for them, that's great. But I'd rather have a foolproof method where I know they're not going to be coming back in with this rotator. Okay? And
it's important to make sure that you spiral that tape up, like Dr. A said. Some veterinarians will attach the splint to the leg with the tape, but then they're using even bands. And again, you're creating a constricting band by having those tape meet.
If you create a constricting band like this and this splint slips and the bandage material gets jammed down into that constricting band, now you're cutting off the circulation, you're going to have swollen toes. Anytime you have three things really, swollen toes, wetness, or odor, you got to change it. Three things: swollen toes, wetness, or odor, you got to change it. Okay? So now we do the same thing with our vet wrap. And again, this is mainly a protective layer. All your work has been done with your white tape. So I'm not concerned so much about how many layers of this I get on there, because all your work's been done with the brown gauze and the white tape and the cast padding.
With the white tape, you only want upwards, right?
Yeah, there's no reason to go. It's an attachment. It's not. So once it's attached to the back of that brown gauze, it's attached. It's not going anywhere.
You start from the bottom. Always begin at the bottom.
And spiral it up. Now, the more meat there is on the leg, the more muscle that you have, the less likelihood you can cause a constricting band. So down here, it's real easy to constrict the leg. But up here, because you have so much vascular supply and so much muscle, it's really difficult to cause a constricting band as the leg thickens. Do you see what I'm saying? So, oh, that's okay. Let's just call it a day with this, okay? There's no sense to use extra supplies just for the demonstration. So notice I got some wrinkles, so I take my other hand and use that to smooth it out. And before I apply it, I smooth it out with my hands to get a nice even look. And I'm not going to go ahead and get the rest of it because you guys get the idea, right? Mm-hmm. And go ahead and put your white tape on the end. And in reality, I should have gone all the way up. Okay?
Now, can you talk about gaps that form?
Oh, okay. With the Meta-splints particularly, or even with this, you can see there's a gap. So what we'll want to do, either take some cast padding or cotton and go ahead and put padding in there because we don't want any movement between that, and then take your vet wrap and wrap that padding in. So a lot of times when you have a gap with a splint, you put your splint on, there'll be a gap at the top. So that will move and then cause a point of irritation. So you want to fill that with padding and then secure it in place. Okay? So really important, notice how I'm an inch below the foot. Because as that animal walks, it's going to try to go up the leg. And that's the other reason for putting on the tape. When I see veterinarians put on a splint and they just put the vet wrap on without taping the splint to the leg, I know in 3 or 4 days after concussion on that splint's going to ride up the leg and they're going to lose their transfer of power up the leg. Okay? Does that all make sense? So let's go ahead and either put on a Meta-splint on the palmar surface or a lateral splint on, I don't know where she has front legs or hind legs or both. What do you have? Just a mixture? Hind legs. So